So it looks like I might get what I thought I wanted, which is circumstances that. Well, no, actually, that's not true. It, no part of me really wanted this, but yeah, it looks like we might have a conflict, a global conflict on our hands because Putin is just going to straight up invade Ukraine. I don't know if we're going to immediately respond to that or not, but I know he's not going to stop there. That's not how these things work, and it's yeah. So likely, China would take advantage of that chaos to finally go for Taiwan, and that will just I don't know. I can't predict the future. I can't predict the future, but I would be willing to guess that Putin is going to invade Ukraine, and it's like, are we going to defend them or not? Well, people are pretty exhausted right now, but people are also not in the mood to let Russia take over the world. So we're probably not going to be able to militarily intervene right away if he invades Ukraine. But that will kick off a series of escalations that may or may not stop. And I don't know. It's like you have to understand the way a regime like Putin's works is that he has to keep certain people happy to stay in power. And the most important people for him to keep happy are his military people. And they aren't happy when they see an opportunity that he's refusing to take. And there's a great opportunity there. Just invade Ukraine. Because there's a lot of chaos in the world, there's not a lot of ability to stop them right now. And they know they can not exactly get away with it, but they know they can do it. And we won't be able to immediately stop them. And it's unclear what will happen after that, but it's probably going to get ugly. These things can become very difficult to predict exactly how they'll go, but because it might not escalate out of control, right? It could be that they just occupy Ukraine. It could also be that they just back down, but most likely they'll start pushing into Ukraine, and then we will condemn their actions while building up our forces, but not actually doing anything. And then they'll try to negotiate once we've built up our forces in Europe, because right now we're not in a very postured condition, right? We're not ready to go fight. We are ready to be ready. We are able to get that sort of, we could start deploying squadrons of aircraft, and we could start deploying ground units, and we could start deploying all sorts of assets over to Europe. But we'd also have to maintain our force numbers in the Pacific to make sure that China doesn't do anything in the meantime, which they might also try to do, which would require even more. And so it's like it's the sort of thing that can get out of hand in a hurry. And it's like, well, they're certainly going to need a lot of fighter pilots and a lot of people who know how to develop new technologies of destruction. So I guess I'm, good to go, but it's not really what I want. And it's like, would I prefer that to another recession? No, I would prefer another recession right now. It's like wars are just that terrible. Don't get me wrong. I love fighter jets, but no sane, rational person actually loves violence. Not when it's lethal, and you have to psych yourself up to do stuff like that in a certain way. And I'm probably going to have to, get back into that mode of thinking a little bit, and I'm not looking forward to that really because it's kind of an awful feeling actually to like have your whole brain be consumed with this just like I don't know. It's hard to describe. Like, it's not that bad when you're flying a an airplane because like, well, I've never actually flown an airplane in combat, but I've flown an airplane, and I've had my like whole 1 semester of ROTC before they kicked me out. Some things have changed since then, although mostly the thing that changed is the stupid things that actually were my fault that I did have long passed, but also some more sensible policy changes have subsequently been made. But yeah, it's people don't understand how scary the Russian Air Force is, because they are much more frightening than the Chinese, because China has a much larger industrial base, but it's a lot more vulnerable. And also, they just don't have the experience base of pilots. Because being a fighter pilot, it's the sort of thing that you really need experience in combat, or you need somebody with that experience to teach you. And the next best thing is, that experience passed down through subsequent generations, while being sort of maintained through practice. They have things like the Top Gun school, the Navy fighter weapons school, and the Air Force also has a fighter weapons school. And they have things like the sort of I don't know. Well, they have things basically like our operations in the Middle East, where there's not like that many aircraft, but during the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War, there were some air-to-air combat, in which we did get some of our aircraft shot down, and we definitely shot down several of theirs. But so that knowledge gets passed down, and the Russians haven't really done anything like that since World War II. But nevertheless, just having that experience passed down through Cold War fighter pilots that were still flying sort of cutting edge jets while training to compete with the United States. The Russian Air Force is very, very, very capable in a way that the Chinese Air Force likely will be in the near future, but just is not yet. And even though the Chinese industrial base is much larger, it's the Russian Air Force that I'm much more afraid of. And part of that is also that Russia just has a much larger nuclear umbrella left over from the Cold War, right? They have this huge, huge, huge second strike capability. They have ballistic missile submarines. They have mobile ICBM launchers and a whole Siberia to hide them in. So they're very difficult to defeat. And so it's a very frightening situation. And I would be, it's like, I would be kind of be like, if I was all this time, it was like, we got to be afraid of China. And then I finally realized that, it actually is Russia that kind of is the more significant threat in a lot of ways. It's like, well, I can't just like change my mind now. I mean, I stand by what I said before. It's like, I'm going to wait until there's an actual war. But nevertheless, if that happens, it's like I can't just be like, oh, but in fact, if anything, it's a more blatant aggression, because Ukraine's sovereignty is established for actually more historical reasons, even than Taiwan's. So, and also we specifically promised to defend their sovereignty in return for them giving up their nuclear weapons. So if we ever want to live in a world where we roll back nuclear proliferation, we have to keep our word on that, don't we? So, I don't know. It's like, we'll see what happens, but yeah, war is just absolutely horrible. It's being a fighter pilot's not that bad, because it's like someone might just blow you up and then you'll be dead. And it's kind of miserable to die in war, but at least, you don't die with your limbs blown off in a foxhole. You get everything blown off all at once when you get hit by a missile, and you might even be very lucky and get to eject. But it can be really terrible, actually, because I mean, if you're flying over enemy territory, then you ask yourself, like, do you want to eject? And you actually can get cut up pretty bad by the shrapnel from a missile. But more often than not, you end up either you take damage and you can eject, or you just get blown up and you die. But sometimes you do get these nasty injuries, like they get on the ground, and it's a mixed bag. You get to sleep in a more comfortable place every night, and you get to be in an airplane when you're fighting. But it's pretty risky, so it's not to be taken lightly. But that's why I'm going to need to do it, is there's not going to be a whole lot of people that want to when they realize how actually dangerous it is. because it's not safe. It's not. Woohoo! We have these awesome, sophisticated fighter jets, and we blow them up, and they can't blow us up. It's no. When you go shoot missiles at people, they also have missiles, and they shoot back, and you just might die. And I will just have to be okay with that. I'm not sure that I am, but I'm as close as I can be. Because I'm not going to go joyriding killing people. I am going to do my best to do the right thing based on our things we've promised we would do. And not go around being like, woohoo, I'm a fighter ace, because I'm very lucky that I already know how to fly and I have this education, so I can get myself into that spot, because there's going to be such a huge demand if this happens. But I need to remember that there's a difference between just murdering somebody and killing somebody in a war. But it's still killing somebody, isn't it? And it's still... I don't think it's too late to stop this. But yeah, it would be rather challenging, and I don't really know what to do. So...